Hey guys, our topic this week is a lore request from Sinister Obliteration, all caps. We'll be going over the Dragon Priests from Skyrim of the Elder Scrolls series.
Okay, so to understand who and what the Dragon Priests are, we first need to briefly go over a little bit of world history for the Elder Scrolls games. Skyrim, the game, takes place in, Skyrim, a country on the continent of Tamriel. The Dragon Priests are members of a largely defunct order that has come to be known as the Dragon Cult, which originated on a different continent known as Atmora, which was, quite possibly, the original land from which the various races of humanity spread. Though humans were found on Tamriel already when the Atmorans began to migrate, so this is not at all a certainty. Thus, the Dragon Cult hails all the way back to the days before Skyrim was a settlement for the Nords, one of the many races of men, much less a country. The Dragon Cult deified various animals, worshipping them either as gods or personifications and aspects thereof. Subsequent historians believe that these animals served as avatars for the very same gods worshipped by the races of man in modern Tamriel. Chiefest among these deific animal totems in the Dragon Cult religion, for reasons that seem obvious, were the dragons. Now, in terms of Elder Scrolls world building, dragons are massive, winged lizard-like creatures that are literally immortal. Their bodies never age or die of natural causes, and even when their body is shattered, their soul lives on in one form or another. They are also highly intelligent and incredibly powerful. Even the language of the dragon itself carried power, as it is from the dragon's language that the dragons created the very first shouts, a central game mechanic in Skyrim.
So, the reasons that the Dragon Cult worships dragons seem fairly obvious, and the dragons themselves consider that very same worship to be an obvious reaction from mortal men. After all, dragons were eternal. They were significantly more powerful, more durable, and, at least in their own minds, wiser and more intelligent than these small, soft-skinned, weak, short-lived humans that worshipped them. The Atmoran worship of the dragons was both accepted and encouraged by the dragons of Atmora, and priests of the Dragon Cult were appointed to gather tribute for their dragon overlords. In exchange for absolute, unquestioning loyalty, these dragon priests were granted a comparatively small amount of power from their dragon gods, and they ruled over their fellows like kings, organizing tribute for the dragons, instituting laws to maintain peace between dragonkind and their worshippers, and handling the day-to-day rulership and worship duties that running an organization or society required, as the dragons had no interest in doing so themselves.
All of this sounds relatively benign, as there was no particular indication that the dragon priests as a whole ruled their fellow Atmorans oppressively, though there were almost certainly both fairer and more tyrannical priests throughout the Dragon Cult's sphere of influence. But things took a turn for the oppressive when the Atmorans, and by extension dragons and their cult, began to settle on the continent of Tamriel. No clear reason for why is given in-game, with the indication being that the reasons are lost to time. Skyrim takes place thousands of years after this initial migration, and even thousands of years after the fall of the cult, which we'll get to later. But sometime after arriving in Tamriel, the Dragon Priests begin to rule with more cruelty, holding the people in the iron-fisted grasp of totalitarian rulership, transforming into something of a slave empire. The result being that, after a while, as all do, the citizenry began to revolt, balking under the weight of this heretofore unknown oppression. When tribute stopped flowing, the Dragon Priests came down harder, moving to arms and demanding gifts for their dragon gods. The people took up arms in turn, fighting back, and it was at this point that the dragons themselves stepped in, slaughtering thousands of rebellious humans, and the Dragon Wars were now in full swing.
Humanity was, at first, several steps past being on the back foot. The dragons, with their mystical, physical, and air superiority, woefully outmatching them in battle. Even their dragon priests, gifted great magical power by the dragons, were more than a match for the average soldier. Things looked dire for the enemies of the Dragon Cult, until the intervention of Paarthurnax. While the dragons led the Dragon Cult, the dragons themselves were led by Alduin, said to be the first and greatest of the dragons created by the god of time, thus the dragon race's whole immortality thing. Some even believe the god of time and Alduin to be the same being, though Alduin refers to himself as said god's creation, so that seems unlikely. Paarthurnax was, at least at the time of the Dragon Wars, Alduin's greatest lieutenant. However, for one reason or another, Paarthurnax and a handful of other dragons joined the forces of men, teaching them the dragon language and specifically the ability to shout, which was essentially the source of draconic magic. One interesting thing to note here is that Paarthurnax is one of the very few dragons to survive the Dragon War. In fact, he is alive roughly 7,000 years later during the Skyrim game, so the player can speak to him. When asked, Paarthurnax will tell the player that he aided men against Alduin and his fellow dragons because Alduin falsely began to claim godhood, long years of dragon cult worship evidently having gone to his head. What makes this interesting is that other historical reports, including those kept by the Greybeards, of whom Paarthurnax was the highest-ranking member, indicate that Paarthurnax was compelled to help mankind at the behest of one of the Nord gods, Kine, considered the mother of men. Normally we would dismiss 7,000-year-old historical records when they clash with the direct accounts of those who were there, but considering Paarthurnax runs the very group that has this piece of information carved into stone, it makes us wonder which is true. Obviously, one reason for helping doesn't preclude the other, but leaving either half of that story out feels both intentional and odd.
Either way, with the aid of Paarthurnax and what few dragons joined him, as well as their teaching humanity the ability to shout, Alduin, the dragon cult, and the dragon priests were eventually overthrown. Most dragons and most dragon priests died either in the Dragon War or in the years following. However, those dragon priests that survived remained faithful. Power for absolute obedience, remember? They hid themselves away in the farthest and most remote reaches of the region, and prepared for Alduin's return. You see, to defeat Alduin, mankind's heroes had to cast him outside of time, and the dragon priests believed, rightfully so as it turned out, that Alduin would one day return and raise his dragon cult empire once more. In preparation for his return, the dragon priests erected the dragon burial mounds for each fallen dragon they could find. And it would be from these sites that Alduin, when he returned to the world during the events of the Skyrim game, would raise most, if not all, of his draconic brethren back to life. In addition to this, the dragon priests sealed themselves and their fellow worshippers away in various tombs and other locations of importance to them across Skyrim, performing various rites allowing them to ascend to lichhood, so that they would be alive and ready to serve upon Alduin's return. For those unaware, a lich is a creature found in numerous fantasy settings that is usually, and Skyrim is no exception, some form of powerful magic user that has used necromantic practices to unnaturally prolong their own life. So, set with their own version of immortality, the remaining dragon priests settled into their tombs and awaited Alduin's return.
During the events of the Skyrim game, numerous dragon priests can be encountered. However, in the base game, only 8 of them are important. These named dragon priests are presumed to be among the very highest ranking of Alduin's priests during their heyday. Each was gifted with a powerful magical mask by the dragon overlords, and each of the 8 shares a name with their respective mask. Whether the mask took on the priest's name, or the priest took on the mask's name as some sort of symbol of office is unknown. What is known is that each name is a word in the dragon's language. Examples including Mordecai, Croesus, and Ragot. Glory, sorrow, and anger, respectively. I probably slaughtered those. Sorry. Loading screens will tell you that something, Alduin's return, has awakened the priests from their long slumber. They universally wait in or near their burial sites, guarding various items or locations of importance. But not all are requisite encounters when following the primary questline. Whenever the player slays one of the named dragon priests, they drop their mask, each of which is a fairly powerful helmet on their own. However, when all are acquired, the player can journey to the Labyrinthian, which is all that remains of what once was the dragon cult's seat of power, and install them on a pedestal in order to access yet another, slightly more unique dragon priest mask.
With the addition of the Dragonborn DLC, 5 more named dragon priests were added, most notably the DLC's lead antagonist, Mirak, as well as Valok the Jailer. Like the original 8 priests from the base game, each of the new dragon priests drop powerful masks, and share their names with said masks. Also, like with those base 8, the names are all words in the dragon language, Mirak and Valak, for example, translate to Allegiance Guide and Guardian, respectively. Mirak acts as the lead antagonist for the DLC's main questline. He was the very first Dragonborn and turned upon his Dragon Masters, choosing instead to serve the Daedric Prince, Hermaeus Mora. Gross oversimplification, Daedric Princes are mighty gods / demon-like entities. We also mentioned Valak because when Mirak turned against the dragons, Valak championed his Dragon Master's cause and defeated Mirak. Accounts differ on what exactly happened next, either that Valak locked Mirak away on Solstheim, the island on which the DLC takes place, or that Hermaeus Mora plucked Mirak away, bringing him to the Daedric Prince's home plane of Apocrypha. Considering Mirak is found in Apocrypha over the course of the DLC's main campaign, we presume that the latter was actually what happened. Either way, after that, Valak was appointed ruler of the island by his Dragon Masters, and he was charged to eternally watch for Mirak's return. A charge he kept, at least in part, as just with all of the other Dragon Priests, with the possible exception of Mirak, Valak and the other new Dragon Priests have also become liches, waiting for their master's return with the help of eternal unlife.
And that's basically the story of the Dragon Priests. Stewards of men for their dragon gods from ages gone by. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like, and if you have ideas for videos you'd like to see us do in the future, do like Sinister Obliteration, all caps, and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore or let's play, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off.
Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like it, hit this subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, go to the link on the left.
And for a video chosen by the gods of YouTube from our channel, hit that link on top.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.